You had no right to touch private land.
I'm protecting community standards.
The day Margaret had my combine towed was the day I decided enough was enough. I'd just finished a long afternoon repairing a fence on my 10-acre farm in Willow Creek, a quiet stretch of Kentucky countryside where the air smells of hay and freedom. I was looking forward to a cold beer, a hot shower, and maybe a slice of pecan pie from the diner in town. Instead, I rolled up my gravel driveway to find a shady tow company hitching my Case IH combine onto a flatbed like it was some abandoned junker. Standing across the road, arms crossed and smirking like a cat that caught a canary, was Margaret, president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association, self-appointed queen of neighborhood perfection, and a thorn in my side since the day she moved in. My name's Henry Caldwell, and I've lived on this land my whole life. My father's name is still on the deed, handwritten in ink and framed above my mantel. Willow Creek used to be nothing but farms and open fields, but 15 years ago, developers started building cul-de-sacs and McMansions, and with them came the HOA, creeping like kudzu over our rural peace. My farm, legally exempt from most of their rules, was a constant irritation to Margaret. She'd tried finding me before, once for my unapproved red barn, another time for my excessive corn stalks. Each time, I'd sent back a notarized letter citing my property's grandfathered status. She'd back off, but I could tell she was biding her time. That day, as the tow truck rattled my combine, Margaret waved a violation notice like it was a royal decree. According to her, my combine was an industrial eyesore parked illegally on my own land. Never mind that it was tucked neatly beside my shed, shaded by a sycamore tree. I walked over, calm as ever, and said, "Margaret, I hope you've got a good lawyer." She scoffed behind her oversized sunglasses. "Henry, we have standards. That rust bucket is dragging down property values." I didn't argue. Margaret fed on drama, and I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction. Instead, I went inside, poured a coffee, and started planning. I'd been watching Margaret's antics for years. I had filler screenshots of her fake finds, emails about her bullying neighbors over non-compliant flower beds, even a record of her trying to ban old Mr. Thompson's windmill. My combine wasn't just mine. It belonged to my farming LLC, making her tow a clear case of business property theft. Plus, my land was outside the HOA's jurisdiction, a fact she'd conveniently ignored. I made 3 calls. One to the sheriff to report theft, one to my sister Laura, a property lawyer in the next county, and one to Jim, a former HOA board member who'd quit after Margaret tried to outlaw porch rockers. Jim laughed when I told him, "She's finally stepped in it, Henry. Let's bury her." Over the next week, Margaret strutted around Willow Creek like she'd won a war. She even published my violation in the HOA newsletter, complete with a clip art combine crossed out in red. I chuckled at her audacity, but I stayed quiet, letting her dig her own grave. Laura confirmed the tow was illegal and uncovered something even better. The HOA's maps hadn't been updated with the county, meaning Margaret's authority was null and void. Worse for her, she'd forged board approvals for my fines and the tow order. It was all her, acting alone, on fake letterhead. Then Margaret escalated. She slapped a new violation on my gate, claiming my split-rail fence was non-standard and my rooster was a noise nuisance. In a farming town, that was laughable, but to her, it was ammunition. She even organized a community standards patrol, leading a posse of her loyal followers clipboards in hand past my farm, glaring at my property like it was a personal insult. I leaned on my porch with a glass of sweet tea and called out, "Y'all measuring my soybeans too, or just the fence?" Margaret's face tightened, but she kept walking. I didn't respond to her notices. Instead, I built a case. I set up a trail camera by my driveway, catching one of her minions snapping photos from a ladder. I labeled it Exhibit 9, HOA Spy. Laura found discrepancies in Margaret's violation forms, board meeting dates that didn't exist, signatures that didn't match. Jim provided emails proving Margaret had bypassed the board entirely. Other neighbors, like the Garcias, who'd been fined for their unapproved gazebo, sent me their notices. The evidence was piling up, and Margaret had no idea. The turning point came when I discovered an old easement clause in my deed. The HOA's entrance row, the one with their fancy sign, manicured shrubs, and community mailbox ran across a sliver of my land. They'd never paid rent or asked permission. Laura drafted a lease agreement, backdated for 15 years of use, totaling $52,000 with interest. I mailed it to the HOA and copied Margaret. She didn't write back. Instead, she showed up at my farm, her Cadillac sinking into the mud as she stormed up my drive in heels. "You're bluffing, Henry," she snapped. "You can't charge us for that road." I shrugged. "I can, I am, and I will unless you'd rather settle in court." She huffed off, my rooster crowing for emphasis. The lawsuit hit her like a freight train. Laura filed against Margaret and the HOA for theft, harassment, fraud, and abuse of power. The Willow Creek Facebook group exploded when someone leaked the news. The Garcias posted their fine with a caption, "Who else got scammed by Margaret? Show us your notices." Dozens of residents chimed in, sharing stories of fake fees and intimidation. Margaret tried to shut down the group, but the damage was done. Court day was electric. I arrived in my cleanest boots, a binder of evidence in hand. Margaret swept in like she was auditioning for a reality show, her lawyer looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Judge Larson, a no-nonsense man with a farm of his own, presided. Laura laid out our case: the illegal tow, the forged documents, the harassment, and my land's exemption. She showed a photo of my combine being towed, Margaret smirking in the background, and paired it with her unauthorized tow order. The judge leaned forward. "Mrs. Reynolds, did you sign this order yourself?" Margaret doubled down. "As HOA president, I have the right to protect our community's image." That combine was a blight. Judge Larson's eyes narrowed. "A blight on private property you had no right to touch?" Margaret's defense crumbled. Her lawyer mumbled about implied authority, but Laura countered with my deed, the easement clause, and proof of fraud. The judge ruled in my favor. The HOA was barred from touching my land, and Margaret was personally liable for $42,000 in damages, towing costs, and legal fees. I didn't stop there. I filed a lien on her Cadillac, parked right on my easement. 3 days later, the same tow company she'd hired showed up at her house. As they hooked her car, she ran out screaming, "This is theft." The driver handed her the court order. "Take it up with the judge." I watched from my porch, sipping coffee, as her Cadillac rolled away. The fallout was swift. Jim and 2 other board members called an emergency meeting, using an obscure charter rule to oust Margaret. The vote was 79% to remove her. Her allies quit the next day. The Cadillac was auctioned off to cover part of my damages. A local farmer bought it, and still waves when he drives by. Margaret tried one last stunt: a neighborhood harmony breakfast at her house, complete with linen napkins and a speech about healing divisions. I went, not to reconcile, but to see her squirm. When she offered me a handshake and a fresh start, I said, "Margaret, fresh starts grow best in the dirt of accountability." Her smile froze, and I walked away. The breakfast flopped. Neighbors left early, and someone posted a video of her speech online with the caption, "HOA dictator begs for forgiveness over pancakes." Comments piled up, my favorite from a guy down the road. "I'd trust a goat to run the HOA before her." The new board, led by Jim, took over. They canceled all of Margaret's fines, refunded $5,000 to residents, and found she'd spent $900 on custom, lawn excellence signs from a boutique in Nashville. They also notarized a letter confirming my land's exemption, which I hung beside my father's deed. I used part of the settlement to pave my driveway and plant native clover along the edges. I tore down the HOA's entrance sign half on my land and replaced it with a stone arch reading, "Welcome to Willow Creek. Respect the land." Margaret sold her house soon after. Her husband sent me a letter, apologizing and saying she'd lost herself in the HOA's power. I kept it, but didn't reply. She moved to a town called Bluegrass Hollow, started a blog called Tidy Fields, and posted a photo of a perfectly trimmed lawn. I closed the tab. Willow Creek changed. The new board hosted cookouts and craft fairs. People painted their mailboxes bright colors and old misses. Larson started flying a quirky garden flag again. The lawsuit continued without Margaret, with 4 families winning damages from $1,500 to $7,000. The HOA rewrote its charter, mandating transparent votes and appeal rights. One day, a young couple bought Margaret's old house and asked about the combined drama they'd read online. I smiled. Storm's over. Welcome to the neighborhood. At the HOA's first Community Roots Day, Jim asked me to speak. I stood before kids with popsicles, neighbors with lemonade, and a petting zoo in the park. I'm a farmer, I said. I believe in open gates, not iron bars. In neighbors, not bosses. And in combines that stay where you park them. The crowd laughed. We learned something here. Rules are for fairness, not fear. When someone swings power like a club, stand together. They clapped, and Mrs. Larson handed me a plaque, a tiny silver combine labeled for grit and justice. I hung it in my barn. Months later, I saw Margaret at a gas station off the interstate. She was alone, pumping gas into a rental car, her usual swagger gone. I thought about saying something, but the memory of her gloating as my combine was towed stopped me. I turned away. Some battles don't need a final word. Today, my new combine bright greens its proudly by my shed. Clover blooms along my drive, and Willow Creek feels alive again. Margaret taught us something. Power built on control is fragile, but a community built on respect is unbreakable. As I watch the sunset over my fields, I know I didn't just win a fight. I helped free a neighborhood. What do you think about this story? Have you ever faced someone abusing power or acting unjustly in your community? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about standing up to bullies and fighting for fairness. Your perspective matters, so tell us where you stand.